The calculate function has got two parts. The first part is the expression or the calculation that you want to do, and the second part is a filter, and the third part is another filter, and then another filter, and then another filter. Now these filters have very peculiar behavior and they can be customized a lot depending upon the calculation that you're trying to do. In this video, I'm going to show you 5 very interesting examples of the calculate function that are going to help you build very customized calculations. No further ado, let's start. My first example is that how do you deal with static filters in the calculate function, and this is one of the most common examples that you will find people writing with the calculate. Let me show you what do I mean by that. So I have a simple pivot table right here. We have year, month, we have total sales, and perhaps one of the channels through which we sell our product is affiliate channel, and I would like to exclusively calculate that what is my affiliate sales only, and that is the filter that I would like to include in my total sales calculation. So I'm still wanting to find the total sales, but perhaps only for a certain channel. Let's just see how can we write that measure. So I'm going to go ahead and write something like calculate, obviously. And like I said, the first part of calculate is an expression. So I'm going to say, hey, my expression is nothing but my total sales. And then the filter that I want to include in total sales is nothing but the channel should be equal to, let's say, affiliate. And now, since I've written affiliate in the inverted commas, this simply means that I am using a static filter. Now, as soon as I commit on this, you're going to see that we get a number, and this is nothing but affiliate sales. Now, this common example has a bit of pitfalls if you change the layout of the pivot table just a bit. Let me show you what do I mean by that. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this pivot table, Control C, Control V, and change the way that I present the data. So instead of using year and the month as dimensions, I'm going to use the channel as dimensions. So year and month out, and I'm going to bring the channel inside. So I'm just going to click on the tab right here. In the rows, I will add the channel, and let's just add the channel in here. Now, if you take a look at the sales number, of course, you can take a look at affiliate sales, organic sales, and promotional sales. But since we included a hard filter in our calculate function, and we say that we only want to take a look at affiliate sales, it's going to override any filter which is coming off from the visual. So instead of applying the filter for organic, it will apply the filter that the calculate function has written, and it shows affiliate sales instead. This is a regular behavior of the calculate function. If you don't understand this behavior in the first place, I will highly recommend that you take a look at another video that I have done on calculate, and you will understand better about the calculate function's behavior. But for now, this visual is quite not right, because even though I have written sales channel equals to affiliate, I still perhaps do not really want to see the sales of affiliate against organic and promotional channels. So I want to show a blank right here. Technically, this is what I want. So how do you handle such scenarios? What you can do is, in your measure, you can wrap your filters around the keep filters formula. Let me show you. So if I just go ahead and wrap the filter around the keep filters formula, what I'm going to be able to do is that I would be able to remove any values that are coming against organic and promotional, and these are going to be blank values instead. I've also done a video on the keep filters function. In case you want to take a look at the behavior of keep filters, you can take a look at that as well. Keep filters channel equals to affiliate. I think I've missed the table name sales, and now this should work just fine. And you can see that we have the numbers not visible right here. So just keep in mind that in case you're writing any static filters, and those static filters are also clashing with the visual filter, which is coming off from the slicer or the pivot table or the table visual, then in that case, it's going to override and show you probably an incorrect number, and then you can go over that using a keep filters function. Quick interruption in the video in case you're liking the video so far and you're wondering that how can I learn these skills of writing good DAX, good data modeling, the M language behind Power Query, and all of the nuances of Power BI that makes it work. I have brilliant courses on Power BI, especially the Power Query part, the DAX part, data modeling part, and the M language part. In the courses, I take you from a beginner level and take you to more advanced concepts, try to explain you the logic of how things are working so that you feel confident in applying the learnings to even on your own data sets. Hundreds and hundreds of students have joined my courses and they have benefited a lot. In case you're interested, the link for the courses is going to be down in the description of the video. Let's get back to the video. In my next example, let's just learn how do you work with time-based filters, which are standard, and very customized time-based filters. So 2 examples right here. Let's just take a look at the case. So we have obviously year, month like we had it before, and we have sales right here. And I would like to find out sales of the last year and the growth over the last year's sales. So if you take a look at the month of Jan in 2011, this is the sales number, which is going to be last year for 2012. And if I would like to compare the current year, which is 3455, against against the last year number, I would then want to find out what has been the growth. So we have some standard ways of doing that. I'm just going to start basic. All right, let's just start writing a calculation for our last year sales. And how do we do that? I'm going to go ahead and, as expected, write the calculate function, and I'll say that, hey, I'm trying to calculate total sales, but then I would want to have a filter that pushes the date to the last year of the same period. So if I'm taking a look at the month of January, I still want to take a look at the month of January, but not for 2012. I want to take a look at for 2011. That's what I want to do. So whatever period you have, which is Jan, Feb, March, or Q1, or whatever period, I just want to shift that period to the last year. That means the only alteration that is going to be done is going to be moving the year from the current year to the previous year. And for that, we have a built-in function called the same period last year. It asks you for, do you have a date column? Yes, we have a date column. I'm going to save this particular measure, and the last year numbers show up right here. Once we've gotten the last year number, let's just also calculate the growth really fast. It's quite simple actually. All that I'm going to do is I'm going to say, hey, why don't you check for two things? I should have the current year number and I should have the last year number. Both the numbers should be present. And if both the numbers are present, only then you find out what has been the growth of that. So I'm going to go ahead and say if total sales is not equal to blank, that's my first condition. And my second condition is my last year sales also not equal to blank. If both these conditions are true, then I want to calculate growth. And the formula for that is current year sales, which is my total sales, divided by last year sales minus 1. And that has been my growth formula. I'm going to click on that, save this formula, format this a bit, and we have the growth numbers present right here. The sales last year number, which is right here, we used a standard calculation called same period last year as a filter in the calculate function. Now, what happens is that a lot of times you're going to be wanting to use a more customized filter, which takes care of the certain dates, leaves the certain dates, things like that. Let me bring to you an example and hopefully you will understand it better. Now, if you take a look at our 2012 kind of numbers right here, you're going to see that we have the current year number, and of course we have the last year number, and the growth has been 68%. But this 68% is not quite right, because if you take a look at the sales for the current year 2012, you're going to see that we have only done 8 months of sales so far. That means the data is only for the 8 months, and that's $30,000. But for the last year, we are considering the entire 12 months of data. So we're technically comparing 8 months with 12 months, and then we are trying to find out the growth, and that's not really the right thing to do. So what I would want to do is I would want to adjust the total right here in such a way that it only accounts for whatever current months are there in the current year, takes a look at the same months last year, and then finds out the growth as per that. So in this scenario, we will have to custom create date ranges. That means this particular date range, which is for 2012, should be created for 2011, and for that date range, I want to find the sales and then compare that to the number. And that is how you create custom calculation. Let's just see how can that be done. All right, to begin with, I'm going to create a variable. Let's just remove this measure that we have created, and let's instead create a simple variable called the max date variable. And I'm just trying to see that what is the maximum date in the current year, and then trying to take that date 12 months behind to the last year. So I'm just trying to find that what is the maximum date in the sales table. Once I find the maximum date in the sales table, I take that to the last year, because we are trying to find out the last year range. Now, since we have used the var, we also kind of need to do the return. So I'll just say return, and I'm going to return the max date variable right here. Let's just see what is the result of that. Now, this is actually showing me a bad format. So let me just quickly fix the format. And once I do that, you can take a look that it actually shows me the last year date in every single context. So here, the largest date is 31st of January 2012. When moved to the last year, it became 2011, so on and so forth for the individual months. But hey, for the total also, our last date in the current year was August 31st, which it converted to August 31st of 2011 right here. Similarly, I'm going to create another variable for the minimum date as well. So another var, and I'm going to say, hey, here is my min date, and this is the min date of the calendar date. Nothing much changes. If you want to take a look at what is my output, I can just go ahead and show you what the output is. And that is simply going to be the first of the month, and that is presented right here. Nothing that complicated. Now I want to write a measure in such a way using calculate that actually creates a range of the dates between the start date and the end date. So my calculate function is going to go something like this. I'm going to say, hey, I'm trying to calculate total sales, but using a date between function, I can create custom date ranges, and I'm going to say, here is my date, and from this date, you can create the dates between minimum date and the maximum date. And if I now kind of save this particular thing, I'm going to see that here at the total level, right here, I am seeing only the first 8 months, which is Jan through August total of the last year. That means if you actually total all of these months right here, you're going to have the total which is presented right here at the bottom of the visual right right here. Now the growth comparison is going to be good. 245 is going to be the growth comparison, but I don't really want to show these numbers as well because these are bad numbers. So I can just wrap this function around in an if function, and I'm going to say, hey, if you have the sales present of the current year. So I'm going to say if total sales is present, if total sales is not equal to blank, in that case, please do the calculate function. Otherwise, you do not do the calculate function. Simple as that. I'm going to close the bracket and commit on this, and you can see that the sales are vanished from here, the numbers that we don't need. And now, even at the total level, the numbers are absolutely correct. So this is how you design more customized time-based filters. There are several examples of this, but this is one such example. Another very interesting example of the calculate function is called layering filters. You can do nested calculate to layer the filters in order of their execution. Let me help you understand what do I mean by that by showing you a very interesting example. Let's just say that we're working with the same problem. We have total sales, and I'd like to have the last year calculation presented once again. And when I calculate growth at the total level, I want to consider whatever months are there in the current period. I want to consider the same months in the last year's period as well, so that my total calculation is right and therefore my growth calculation is right, the case that we just saw, for which we created a custom date filter and we did a lot of calculations around that. But you can also use a data modeling trick for that. Let me help you understand and where layering comes into picture. So if I actually go over to my calendar table, in my calendar table, I can actually create a column called sales present check. That simply means that take a look at my sales table and see what is the largest date in the sales table. Let me show you. So I'm going to go ahead and say, hey, why don't you find the maximum date in the sales table and the date column. I'm going to close the bracket and press enter. Sure enough, this gives me 29th of August, but I don't want to kind of hit the middle of the month date. I want to take it to the end of the month. So I'm going to go ahead and say, hey, why don't you take this date to the end of the month, end of the current month, close the bracket and press 0. And this is going to give me the 31st of August. Once you have the 31st of August date for 2012, which is the largest date in the sales table, I now want to compare that. Take a look at this particular date. Is this date smaller than this date or not? If it's small, the sales was present. If it's not small, the sales is not present because the largest date of the sale is right here. So I'm going to say, hey, why don't you take a look at the calendar date column and see if that date is less than or equal to the largest date in the sales table or not. Now this is going to give me a true and false, and all the trues are those dates where the sales was existent, and all of the falses are those dates where the sales was non-existent because the calendar can be long. Now let's just use this true and false as a check in the calculate function. So here is how it works. I'm going to start creating this sales modified measure, and I will create it the same way like I did it before. So I'm going to go ahead and say calculate. I'm going to calculate my total sales, and my total sales, I would apply a filter of the same period last year of the calendar date, close the bracket and press enter. Now if I do that, sure enough, I see all the numbers, but I also see these numbers, and I also see the full year's total sales and not just 8 months of sales. Now what you can do is you can layer the filters. Now if you just go ahead and take a look at our calendar table and the column that we have made, you're going to see that if I just go ahead and apply a true filter, click on OK, and sort the dates in the descending order, that means I am seeing that my calendar table shows me a true, which is where the last date is 31st August 2012, and that's where I would want all the other calculations to stop working. So first I want to apply this particular filter, the true filter, then I want to apply the last year filter. So you can layer the filters one after the other. In my calculate function, I'm just going to go ahead and wrap this around in another calculate because I want to apply that filter first. So I will say calculate, and I'm going to say, hey, here is my calculation, and the filter that I want to use is nothing but the sales present check, which obviously is giving me a true and false, so there is no need of writing true or false. It actually means true and false. Now first this filter is going to be applied, which ends at August 2012, and then this is going to be taken back to the last year. And now if you actually commit on this simple layered calculation, you're going to see that you get to see the right numbers right here, and you also get to see the right totals right here. This is a trick that you can use it for almost any kind of calculation which you want to stop it at the level where the sales end, be it last year, be it growth, be it Y2D calculations, and things like that. Another very interesting application is switching between the filter and the relationships of two tables. Let me help you understand. So if you take a look at my sales table has not got one but two date columns. The first one is the sale date, when was the sale made, and the second one was some sort of payout date, when was the payout made. So if I want to find out that what has been the payout made, any kind of filter that I would want to apply to capture any date range needs to be on this particular column. Let's just say I want to find the total payout for the month of January. So I'm actually going to come to this particular column and filter out all the dates for the month of January, and then total my sales into price, and I would get my number. This is the process that I want to follow. But if you actually take a look at the relationship at the back, you're going to see that our our primary relationship between the two tables is the date column right here and the sales date right here. It has nothing to do with the payout date. So how do I actually bring two relationships? So you can actually go ahead and first of all link this particular date with this particular date. Once you do that, it is actually going to ask you, hey, do you want to create a many to one relationship, single, and all of that? Click on save. You have built a relationship, but the relationship that you have created is a secondary relationship and it's not active. You can see that the dotted line is there. The dotted line simply means that it's not active for all the calculations and filter propagations. This is going to use the primary relationship to be able to filter the sales table. However, you can actually use this particular relationship to drive certain calculations, and for that we need calculate. Let me show you how. So I've made another measure called the sales paid right here, which is where I will use that secondary or dotted relationship using a particular formula. So I'm going to go something like this. Hey, I want to calculate my total sales, of course, which is right here, and I want to apply a special filter that activates that dotted relationship using a function called use relationship, which is where I have to mention the two columns that I have linked, which is nothing but my calendar date and my affiliate payout date. I'm going to save this, and this actually creates this particular calculation. Now you can, in a single pivot table, take a look at how much was the sale made in the month of Jan and how much was the sale which was paid out. This is not necessarily the sale that was made in the month of Jan that was paid out, but what was the total paid out irrespective of when it was sold. And this is beautiful. One of the most advanced examples of the calculate function is to use it with context transition. Let me help you understand that under what circumstances are you going to use calculate under context transition. So let's just say that we have the simple pivot table, year, month, and the total sales, and I want to find out that which region had the maximum number of transactions. I don't want to know the name of the region. I just want to know the transactions for the region that had the maximum number of transactions. Let me help you visualize what I'm trying to get at. So let's just say that if I go to my sales table, here is my sales table. If I actually go ahead and filter for any particular region, let's just say Bangalore, and I apply a filter, it has got all of these transactions, and these transactions are going across all of these months. So let's just say that I apply another filter for the month of January and keep all the dates for the January. I want to find out that which of the three regions had how many number of transactions and which of those are the maximum number of transactions. That is what I want to find out. So how are we going to do that? So let's just go ahead and start to write a very simple calculation. So I'm calling this calculation as max region transactions, and let's just start to write an iterator function. So I'm going to say that, hey, in order for me to take a look at all the unique regions, I need a table with all the three regions. So I'm going to say that I want to create a table in the maxx function. The first part of the maxx function is a table, and I want to make a table with the values function, and I will say, hey, why don't you find all the unique regions? That is what the values function is going to give me. Once I get all the unique values of the regions, I would want to just count the number of rows. So I will say equals to count rows of the sales table under every single region. So go to the first row or the first region, count the number of rows, then go to the second row, count the number of rows, go to the third region, then count the number of rows. Once you have counted the number of rows, I just want the maximum value. That's it. So now if I just go ahead and press enter, it actually shows me this answer, but I'm really skeptical that this answer is actually right or not. This is not really the right answer. The reason why this is not really the right answer is that it applies these two filters. It applies the filter of 2011 and the month of July, but it does not apply the region filter. So imagine that we had three regions. We had New Delhi, we had Mumbai, and we had Bangalore. So although it applies 2011 and July filter, but it does not apply New Delhi filter to be able to find the sales of New Delhi only. And that's the reason why this is not really the right thing. Now, to be able to apply the filter for the first row and the second row and the third row, these rows are created by the values function. What I need is context transition. That means once the value is calculated here, it not only takes a look at these two filters, which are coming off from the visual, but also the filter of the very table in which it is calculated. And this is nothing but context transition, taking the row value and applying it as a filter. So how do I do that? You have to actually take this particular calculation and wrap it in the calculate function. So you can actually go ahead and wrap this in the calculate function, and this will now transition the context, and hopefully we will now start to see the right answer. And if you now see, the values are much shorter, much smaller, because these filters of the regions have also been applied. Now, you can obviously not write the calculate, and you can replace this with a measure, not a expression, but a measure instead. Like just write the measure of the count rows. Because the measure has an implicit calculate function around it, it automatically triggers context transition. But would you ask me that why have I written the calculate function instead and the very expression right here? unless I'm using this measure at a lot of other places, I don't really want to clutter my report by a lot of measures. So I just do the context transition using the calculate function and let this calculation be the way it is. The context transition is a very tricky topic, and there are several places where it might just trick you. And I've got another video which is where I have discussed 3 very specific cases where context transition can be very helpful to understand and where can it possibly trick you in the calculations and you might see wrong results. I'll see you in that video.